Hey, welcome to my channel. I just had my first sip of my morning coffee and I feel like a human again. I feel like I can actually live right now. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Becoming of Noah Shaw. The funny thing is that I didn't think this book is actually like a real thing until I saw a physical copy of it, and I was like, oh, I guess this is really happening. So if you sort of read, you probably found out that there's like a lot of companion novels written from the perspective of the male protagonist, if it's like super, especially like well, I don't think there's that many of them, but there's like Grey for 50 Shades of Grey, where the story is told from his perspective. Now, I don't know which part of the story is told from his perspective. I never like bothered to pick it up. For 50 Shades, I just watched the movies. I tried reading the books. I just couldn't. Maybe I didn't have enough willpower in me. And then there was the Twilight, where you had sort of the story told from, I think it was called Midnight Sun, and Edward Cullen was the one who was telling the story. And again, I don't know if it was the first book that he was sort of narrating from his perspective, or I have no idea. I never read them, I never cared enough. I'm like, why would I want to read the same thing all over again, only from your point of view? I mean, I'm curious, but I'm not that curious. So, The Becoming of Noah Shaw is a companion novel, and I had no idea what the hell that meant. I was like, okay, I guess they're like trying to make you buy the rest of the trilogy or something like that. And it's actually true. Basically, if you read this novel without reading the Mara Dyer trilogy, you probably will have zero idea what is going on. This is not the kind of book that you'll read on its own and you'll enjoy it. You won't. And I actually made the mistake of not finishing the Mara Dyer trilogy. I just like read the first and the second novels. I really liked the second novel. I thought it was great. I thought it was so much better than the worst. So many more things were happening. It was so cool. And then I just sort of had a vague idea what's gonna happen in the third novel. I kind of read like the synopsis, whatever. And then, like, I saw this book, and I'm like, whatever, I'm just gonna, like, fuck it, I'm just gonna read it, you know? And I did. And let me just tell you that it will save you a lot of confusion if you will actually bother reading the whole 3 novels, because they are very connected to each other. It's like Harry Potter at some point, I guess, and I'm sorry for bringing up Harry Potter. But it's like Harry Potter, at some point you just have to read like the books one after the other, because if not, it's gonna get a little bit confusing. I mean, you don't have to read the first novel in order to read the second novel, and you probably don't need to read the second novel in order to read the third novel. But I would say from 5 till the end, you probably should be reading them in their order. Anyhow, whatever, doesn't matter. This is not a review about Harry Potter. So I made a list of things I'm gonna talk about, because I always make lists, because I always have so much to say. And this is my list. As you can see, I highlighted stuff. In case you're wondering how much I gave this book, I gave it 2 out of 5. And it's not like I hated it or something. It's not like I thought to myself, this was like a burning pile of trash or something. It's not. Like, I really tried, to be honest, I tried loving this book so much. I was like, okay, like, maybe I'm just not in the mindset for YA right now, because it does happen to me from time to time. I do get tired of, like, reading YA. But then I picked up another book, another like fantasy like YA, and I really loved it, and I was like, okay, so it's not me, I guess this is the book. This is the culprit. So let's start talking about things. So usually when I do book reviews, I talk about things that I love and things that I hate in the novel, and I sort of try to be as objective as possible. For the becoming of Noah Shaw, I tried being objective. I tried like finding things that I like, but I mean, I'm sorry. This is just bad. It was like, I mean, the only people who I would see reading this and genuinely enjoying this are like die-hard Mara Dyer fans. If you read the whole trilogy and that's your life, then you'll enjoy this. Or like if you have a major like panty wedding crush on like Noah Shaw, then you will like enjoy it and read it, and maybe even read the whole trilogy, because it is a trilogy also. Oh my god, what unexpected. What? Yeah. I think it's called like the Confessions of Noah Shaw. Yeah, no, Shaw Confessions. It sounds like he's being put on trial or something. And it's a trilogy. I mean, whoa. So let's start from, like, the cover is really nice. It sort of departs from the somewhat somber covers of the Mara Dyer trilogy, which are a little bit like darker in tone, but are sort of cooler, to be honest. I did like the Mara Dyer covers way more. They seem to be more thought-provoking, and they seem like they had more effort put into them. But this one is not bad. Like, it has the same sort of font, and there's a boy and a girl in the, on the cover page, and honestly, like, looking at the guy's profile, this is not at all what I imagined Noah Shaw profile to be. But whatever, I guess it doesn't really matter. So let's start. Coolio. So first of all, this book does read very fast. Like, honestly, this is what I was so grateful for, because some YA, it feels like pulling teeth sometimes reading some YA, and it's so dense and it's so like long that you're like, there's no need for this novel to be like 4,000 pages long. Honestly, there's no need. But why are you doing this anyhow? Like, why? You think it's a masterpiece? Like, it's not. Just like make it 300 pages long and like call it a day. Michelle Hodkin probably knows what I'm talking about. She made this novel 380 pages long, which is cool, because it means that if you hate it, you can at least finish it very quickly. So, let's start. So, the book starts with the death, and like, okay, if you don't want to hear any spoilers, like, you can stop right now. Just know that I gave this novel 2 out of 5, and you probably only enjoy it if you really, really love the Mara Dyer trilogy. If you actually want to know what the book is about and stuff like that, I mean, you're welcome to like continue watching. So yeah, there we go. Okay, so it starts with the death of Noah Shaw's dad, David. And David is like not an awesome guy. He like experimented on people and stuff like that. Whatever. He's like a villain, kind of. Okay, I get it. Noah really hated him. Mara really hated him. A lot of people really hated him, it seems. And, so it starts with a funeral in England, in like the countryside, at Noah's estate. And Noah and Mara's there too. I don't really know why she's there, but she's there too. And they decide to like have sex in the family crypt or something while everyone's away at church. They just decide, hey, this is gonna be a good time for us to fuck. And I'm like, what the hell? This was one of these things that right off the bat, like, really bothered me. I was like, I get it that you hate the guy. I do. And he was an awful person. But having sex during a funeral, at a crypt, or a mausoleum, or whatever it was, that's just so messed up, in my opinion. That's like really, really, like, I have no idea what the hell. This is like, I don't know, this is like an element of like a B-rated horror film or something like that. I'm like, what the hell are you guys thinking? Like, I get it that you want to probably dance in his grave, but have sex during the man's funeral, and like, he's Noah's dad, so I get it that Noah really hates him, but still, like, it just felt so fundamentally wrong. Like, you don't have to stand there, shed tears for the man, but it was just weird. Like, I was like, okay, this is uncomfortable for me. And it was not even the sex part, it was just the whole, hey, everyone's mourning, but let's have sex at your family crib right now because hashtag why not. Another thing is that this book is like full of triggers. So if you're the kind of person that gets upset easily, I mean, like, if eating disorders upset you, or suicides, or like teenagers having sex, or swearing, or bad plot. No, I'm just kidding. But like, if you're the kind of person who gets like upset easily from these things and you don't want to read a novel that's like a little bit edgy in that sense, you probably don't want to read this one, because this one is like filled with like these things throughout. So you probably like don't want to like expose yourself to that, because it will upset you. Like, I don't mind these things, but the sex scene, like, it thankfully the sex didn't happen, but there was a preload, and the fact that it happened like upset me. So there you go. I don't know. Another thing, like, there's a lot of things. I'm not gonna say another thing because whatever. So there is like hardly any romance going on. So like I said, this novel is told from Noah's perspective. We don't really get to hear Mara's voices and opinions, and everything is like going through his sort of lens. And Noah is so angsty. He's angsty as fuck. And he's like 17 forever. For how long has this dude been 17? I feel as if the Mara Dyer trilogy started with him being 17, and now like a gazillion years later he's still 17. There's honestly something about YA when you have like this gap that like once you turn 18 you're like banished from that kingdom forever. Like, you're not allowed to be older than like 17, because if you do, you get like retired or something, or you join like the corporate world, or whatever. So Noah is like 17 forever. I have no idea how old Mara is, but Noah is certainly 17 forever. So so everything is told from his perspective, and it's very, very different from the way that the Mara Dyer trilogy is written. I feel like the Mara Dyer trilogy is very, very structured. Everything is very organized, the thought process, the actions, the plot. It's all very structured, very organized. And this is like, it was just like a hard read for me sometimes, because it felt like stream of consciousness going on in Noah's mind, when like he was like shooting thoughts all over the place, and then all of a sudden there's like people appearing out of nowhere in his house, and I'm like, what? Why? So this is like what I didn't like about this. Like, even in terms of reading, like, sure, it's like a short book and it reads fast, but it does not read fluently. Like, there is no fluency in terms of the actual reading, of the actual narrative structure, of like what's happening to the people. It's all over the place. The characters are just, I mean, they're very different, quite honestly. Maybe it is because it's from Noah's perspective, but there's like hardly any like romance, it feels to me. So Noah keeps saying, oh, like, Mara is the reason for my existence because I'm so empty on the inside. And the truth is, Noah is quite empty on the inside. Like, he's not even a vessel or something. He's not even waiting to be filled up or anything like that. He's like quite angry and very angsty, and even though he keeps saying how like Mara is the reason for his existence, and like she gives his life purpose, and he doesn't want to kill himself anymore, like, you know, still, I don't like, I don't see, and still he sort of breaks up with her at the end of the novel, and he's like, I don't want to see you again, and she leaves, and then he gets really upset that she leaves instead of standing there and fighting him or trying to, like, justify herself. And I was like, what? And another thing that I sort of wanted to, like, happen was that Mara sort of explained to us why she wants to be with Noah, why it is important for her, because yeah, like, he's really hot, but at the same time she's like, I feel really safe with him, I feel like he understands what I'm going through, I feel that he's very protective of me. Like, with Noah, I just don't see it. In fact, the only thing that I see that is connecting the two of them is, like, sex and the fact that she's pretty. He's like, her face is like, oh, so pretty, and like, she looks unbelievably pretty, and I want to have sex with her, or she wants to have sex with me. And that's, like, seems to be the only thing that's going on between them. There's, like, hardly any conversation that's taking place between Noah and Mara. Like, the setting is, like, now New York. So they live in this apartment. It's kind of like Lord of the Flies thing going on. They live in this apartment. There's, of course, now Michelle Hodkin decided that adult supervision is not important. So Noah's dad is dead. His stepmom is, like, in England or something, I don't know. Mara's parents are, like, still in Florida. They do want to move to, like, New York, but it takes them time, whatever. So there's, like, again, there's, like, no adults. So you have, like, a bunch of teenagers because, like, you have Jamie who's joining them, and you also have, like, Mara's brother, and they're all, like, sort of roaming New York, trying to find out things about their powers and stuff like that. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't understand what's going on. I don't care about any of these people whatsoever. We have, like, a bunch of new people, new characters introduced to the plot, and they're, like, X-Men. I mean, this whole thing kind of reads like X-Men, like teen X-Men, when you have, like, very angsty young adults from difficult backgrounds who find out that they have, like, superpowers or something like that, and they, like, feel uncomfortable and angry and they don't really know what to do. And for some reason, like, Mara and Noah decide to take it on themselves to, like, figure it out, and I'm just like, what is going on even in this novel at this point? I mean, if you introduce characters to the novel, make me care about them. Or make me, I don't know, make me hate them, make me love them. What I feel is just, like, a big question mark towards these people, and I hate it when I feel question marks, because I'm like, you're not doing a great job as a writer, or I'm just, like, or maybe this book is not for me, I have no idea. So the thing about Noah and Mara that I really hated, like I said again, is that there is no conversation going on between them. When he's, like, not being angsty or angry or upset, he locks himself up in his study and reads his mom's diary, which is, like, okay, I get it. He loved his mom, I suppose. I don't know. He never explicitly says it. But his mom married his dad because she knew it was fated, because she'll give birth to Noah and then she'll have to die and Noah will save the world. And I'm like, what are you talking about right now? What the hell is going on? So yeah, so the premise is that Noah is some sort of a freaking hero, and Mara is, like, his shadow. I don't know, maybe they're meant to be, like, Batman and Catwoman, or Batman and Two-Face. I don't know. Anyhow, they're supposed to be, like, sort of enemies, I figured. It's very confusing. But they're, like, also fated to be lovers. But they're like, she's fated to kill him. It's, like, honestly, it's very confusing at times. I really hate the sort of the turn that the plot has taken at some point, and now that I'm thinking back, I probably would not have enjoyed the third part of the Mara Dyer trilogy. So, like I said, there's, like, no conversation, there's no connection between them, unless they're having sex. There's absolutely nothing that seems like they have anything in common. Like, the idea of family that I loved so much in the Mara Dyer trilogy is, like, non-existent in these novels. It's like, it's not important. Like, Mara never says, oh, my mom called, or oh, my dad called, or whatever. And, I mean, Noah is just, he's like a very, like, recluse, emotional individual. He doesn't really understand, I think, he doesn't seem to be like a real person even in that sense, where he's just so like locked in his head to the point where I don't even understand why he's so obsessed with Mara if he hardly spends time with her, and he hardly spends time like talking to her, or you know, planning their future together, or planning their next step or whatever. It just feels very raw. It just feels very, I mean, maybe like in like when it was written, it sounded really great, and maybe even you'll love this novel, but I personally could not like stand some parts of it. And I mean, there's not even that much to say. There's not a lot of positives. There's like some pop culture references that Noah makes to like Hogwarts, or like Lord of the Rings maybe, and Game of Thrones, which, I don't know, is supposed to make him like seem less detached from humanity, and that's pretty much as wild as it gets. On the plus side, Mara is like a really strong individual. She's like a very strong female character. She doesn't really need Noah to like come and rescue her. And I think she's like, the way that he perceives her in this novel is that somewhat as a villain. And he's always saying she has like a cat's smile. And she has a shark's smile. Sharks don't smile, I think. Anyhow, he's like starting to perceive her in a more negative way because of what people are telling him. And instead of like talking to her, having like an adult conversation, because for all intents and purposes they're like adults, they have this apartment in New York City, they're like having sex all the time, whatever, you know, they're flying all over the place, like in their jets, in their like jet set lives, whatever. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but like they're living like very adult lives. So my question is like, why can't you just like have a sit down with the person you care about, with the person you love, with the person you obviously are like you're afraid for because you don't want anything bad to happen to them, and just like freaking have an adult mature conversation? And they never seem to do that. They always seem to be like mature about a whole bunch of stuff, but this thing, for some reason, of talking and figuring things out, which I find is a common problem with a lot of YA novels, because these people, especially if it's like fantasy, these people are like dragon slayers, and they're like doing all these amazing things, or like slash killing a lot of people and all that stuff, and at the same time, like, and they're saving the world, but at the same time, like, talking, like having a sit down with your love interest or with your girlfriend or boyfriend and just asking them, hey, what's going on? Can we please talk? I'm really uncomfortable. I'm really afraid of losing you. Like, please, let's have a conversation. And they never do that. And like, nor the female nor the male protagonists. And I'm like, if I can do it in real life, and I was able to do it at the age of like 18, I'm sure these people can do it too. Especially on the grand scale of things, where they're doing things much more difficult and much more draining mentally and physically. So for me, that was like, okay, it doesn't make any sense. Also, the novel sort of ends on a cliffhanger where Mara's great or some great grandmother appears out of the blue, and she hasn't aged a day, and she looks a lot like Mara. And she like stumbles into Noah, and she's like, oh, like, I want to talk to you about Mara or something. And the novel ends, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I just don't care. And I was like, thank God that one is over. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't like the setting. I don't like the whole like teenagers with special powers in an urban fantasy setting. Like, I am not a huge fan of that. Maybe that's why I didn't like the novel. I'm not an X-Men fan. I mean, I never liked urban fantasy settings. I don't like it when teenagers just like roam around, do whatever the fuck they want. Like, I had that in the Immortal Instrument series and I didn't like it. And of course, I'm not gonna like it when like other writers do it, because I personally hate that narrative type. So this is my opinion on The Becoming of Noah Shaw. For a book that's like 380 pages long, I feel like I really squeezed out a lot. And still there's probably stuff that I forgot mentioning. But that's it. Like, this is it. I went over everything I wanted to say. If you're a fan of the trilogy, by all means, go ahead and read it. You might actually like it. I didn't like it. I gave it 2 out of 5. Not my favorite YA fantasy of 2017. I probably will not be picking up the rest of the books. I probably will not be reading, like, the last part of the Mara Dyer trilogy. Maybe if I did, I would have enjoyed this book better, although I somehow feel that that's not the case. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me for another book review. And if you have, like, if you read it and you like share your thought and you want to share your thoughts, please feel free to comment below.